hospitals, physician practices as well. This is what you need. This is HiLite Health. There's a problem in the system we cannot ignore. Out-of-pocket expenses for the patients has really soared, and they can't pay.
Welcome to the HiLite on Health video series. In this episode, Graven talks to Dan Contaldi, Chief Operating Officer at HiLite Health, about credit card transactions and payments in healthcare.
Hi, folks. This is Graven from HiLite Health. I have another interesting podcast for you today. This episode, we are going to focus on credit card transactions and payments in healthcare. And with me today is Dan Contaldi. I've worked with Dan for a number of years. Very capable from an IT perspective, an entrepreneur. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, thanks, Bryan. Hi, everyone. Dan Contaldi here. As Bryan indicated, I'm his partner here at HiLite Health. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. I'm excited to talk to you guys about our technology today.
Awesome. Well, Dan, it's great having you on the podcast. Dan, I guess, can you tell the audience a little bit more about your background and how we know each other?
Yes, I've been in IT since 1984. I've been in healthcare since 1997. So both Bryan and I have worked as CIOs in large organizations. So we brought our past experiences of how operations worked within practices and how things maybe were challenging with integrating various products. So we kind of developed that into our application. About 15 or so years ago, I think Bryan and I kind of crossed paths when we were working at these different organizations. And eventually we started working together at a large, successful healthcare IT MSP. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to kind of branch off and develop a suite of products that we felt was going to help and be beneficial to practice to help automate and integrate into their entire backroom.
Awesome. So I know you have just a large depth of experience. You come with a lot of knowledge. What are some of the things that you like about HiLite, and really what do you think HiLite brings to the table for either hospitals or medical providers looking for a solution?
That's a good question. I mean, I think what's really cool about our products, we actually make a difference in our customers' daily lives as well as their patients. We assist clients in leveraging our technology on a regular and recurring basis. And we actually try to standardize our product and conform that to their organization, very similar to how Salesforce is customized by clients. And we like to say, if you're comfortable emailing or texting, you can use our system. It's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, simplicity is definitely where it's at. So let's dig into really the heart of today's podcast. Let's talk about payments. So as we know, the payment industry has gone through really a revolution over the last decade between mobile payments, obviously credit card payments, all these digital currencies and everything. Let's talk about credit card payments, because I think that's really the area of focus today. What really is the atmosphere with credit card payments and physician adoption through healthcare?
Yeah, I think maybe about 20 years ago, it was pretty common to have cash receipts. So people were actually using cash and also checks a lot.
Sure.
And now people are getting more comfortable and adapting to like what we do across the world, like we do with Amazon and doing our paying our finances and other bills. Physician offices are comfortable now providing credit card options as well as financing options if they offer that to their patients.
Sure.
For us,
So I was just going to interject real quick. So obviously, credit cards are a staple now with healthcare providers, hospitals, medical practices.
Yep.
What are some of the ways to really optimize the effectiveness of credit card payments? I know that there's really a new workflow, and maybe it's older for some medical providers, but card on file. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the cool thing about card on file, it really helps with co-pays or patients that have reoccurring visits. Let's say if they have PT, when they have an orthopedic procedure. So having that card on file simplifies ongoing payments that are going to be coming out on a regular recurring basis. The patient actually, fills out a form to accept that, to have that, and at any point they can opt out.
Okay, that's great. So from a compliance perspective, you want to make sure you really have all your ducks in a row, right? So talk to me about the compliance aspect of card on file, taking patient payments. How does all of that kind of fit into everything?
Sure. I mean, our systems are PCI compliant, which means that all our credit card transactions are protected and following the proper procedures that any financial institution is going to require. And of course, security is the main concern. So everything that we at HiLite provide is actually encrypted throughout the entire process. We also have multi-factor authentication. So when a patient is going to access their record, they have to put in a date of birth or a zip code or something of that nature, whatever the practice prefers. And compared to the old way of paper, it's actually much more secure to actually kind of do this electronically today. You actually have a tag, you can actually have a record of who did what and when.
Yeah, so it sounds like you always have that audit trail.
Exactly.
You're crossing off all the boxes from a security, a compliance perspective, which is really the start of any new software or product within healthcare these days, just because there's so much visibility and exposure with cyber security. So what are some other ways that healthcare providers can take advantage of using credit cards? Can you talk to a little bit about the outreach for patients when they owe a balance? How does all that work?
Yeah, through HiLite, we have an outreach program. We can reach out to patients either by voice, via either text, or via either email, whatever the patient prefers. They can actually select that preference.
Sure.
And we basically have a standard cadence where we can reach out to a patient based on, let's say, outstanding balances. We send regular reminders to them that they may have a balance that due. And within that message, we actually have a link so they actually can make that payment. Or they have the phone number if they want to call the practice to kind of get back to them. Our process is really good because we have that standard cadence. It teaches the patient that the practice is going to request payment, and also it has the practice that they start seeing more value of the process, where now the patient they have a communication process that's much more thorough rather than a verbal back and forth, paper kind of going back and forth, and just people getting totally frustrated with the process. In addition to that, we do provide a digital statement. So when a patient calls into the practice, rather than entering information in the practice management system and not seeing the exact same thing, through HiLite, they see the exact same thing that was mailed or sent to the patient. So everyone's seeing the exact same thing. And finally, we also provide video context. So if you want to send a video explainer how to read your statement, we also offer that solution as well.
Wow, that's pretty robust. Now that you describe, so you're doing outreach via text message, via email. Patient can also view a digital statement. So I think that's really important because nobody wants to pay for something they don't really know what they're paying for, right? And then from then from a kind of a compliance, so we got that covered. Well, what about after the payments made? Can patients make payments anytime they want? Are there any limitations to that? How does that whole workflow and that cycle work from a patient to back office billing perspective?
Sure. Well, the cool thing is that our system doesn't sleep. Our system doesn't call out sick. Our system doesn't go on vacation. So 24/7, 365 days a year, a patient has access to make payment to their bill. We can also even provide a link to the practice's website if they want to have that. So we have many different ways of making sure the patient has accessibility to make a payment, and also for a practice to make that outreach to patients on a regular reoccurring basis. And we at HiLite automate that process. So if Sally at the front desk forgets this, we make sure it goes out on a regular basis.
Yeah. So let me just get this right again. So we're really knocking down barriers for a patient to make their payment. We're making it convenient. You're providing education via the outreach video that is included in the communication, and that's I'm assuming that's both text message and both email. So that's fantastic, and it's always on, like you said. So with healthcare facing staffing shortages, like everywhere else right now, healthcare more than others. Well, that sounds like it's a time saver for staff. So once a patient makes the payment, what happens to that payment?
Payment automatically gets transferred to the practice, right? The practice can see those transactions happening, and we through our automation process, robotic process automation, we can automatically post those payments on behalf of the practice. So you take out any issues of errors occurring or timeliness of getting information into their practice management system. So everything gets trued up, very similar to how your bank statements and everything else that you have and everything else you use in your everyday life actually happens in a healthcare organization as well.
Wow, that's great. So it sounds like there's an ROI on really the back office workflows. So you're saving staff time,
Sure.
and instead of the staff doing kind of mundane processes, you have the automation doing all that, and that's really big in healthcare today. So
Right.
so all of that's great, Dan. Well, what about the ROI with just the solution in general, and what should healthcare providers take a look at or evaluate with their current credit card processing solution?
Sure, we've seen like some multi-specialty practice or specialty physicians that are, let's say, 5 or 6 providers, can see anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 of savings. So real savings to the bottom line of dollars based on using our credit card merchant services. So it's a very flat fee. It's under 3%, generally speaking. And also, we also see the soft savings. We see about 20 to 25% reduction in staff utilization, right? So the staff does not have to get involved as much.
Sure.
And we've actually had some practice ask us if we can kind of slow down the process because money's coming in much quicker, and
Could
their
you
front
imagine
desk is
that?
getting blown up with calls. So that's a cool problem to have.
Yeah, that's incredible. So again, it sounds like from a ROI perspective, there's a pretty significant savings in reevaluating your merchant service provider. And if you are providing that seamless technology with the robotic process automation, it sounds like a win-win, right?
Definitely is. I mean, the third or fourth highest operating expense for a practice is their credit card fees. So besides all the medical equipment and obviously salaries and benefits, credit card expense is way up there. It's a hidden cost that everyone assumes that they need to pay. A lot of the EMR companies likes to offer that service because they make a ton of money off of the practices,
Sure.
unfortunately. But our solution, and obviously Bryan and I being in that business, we kind of know some of the secret sauce, and we have a solution that can actually save you a ton of money, create more efficiency within your office.
Sure. So with inflation today, and we were all hearing stuff about inflation, you can't get away from inflation. I think this is an excellent opportunity for healthcare providers to save money
Exactly.
and maybe offset some of the inflation that's going on in today's world. So the solution's great. It sounds like the pricing's there. What's the next step for a potential client who's interested, and what's the onboarding process look like?
We actually have a pretty simple process. If a practice can provide us 2 months of their current merchant credit card processing fees, we actually work with our merchant vendor, and very quickly we can determine how much we can save them. After that, it's a very simple application. HiLite is very involved in the process, making sure that if an email is going out to the practice, that they check their inbox and just make sure they sign off on that. And then if they need any additional training or any issues, they can reach out to HiLite at any point. It's pretty much set it and forget it once they get converted over.
Wow, it seems pretty straightforward and super easy. When you and I both know that healthcare is a very complex business, especially when you're introducing new technology or new ideas. So that's terrific. So if a healthcare provider wants to get in touch, how would they go about getting in touch, and what would be the next steps for either an ROI assessment or a demo to talk more about the solution?
Actually, they can go to highlightpay.com, and on there's actually a form that they can fill out, and we can get in touch with them quickly as far as getting them applications and start the process. So within 24 hours, they should expect a response from HiLite to at least begin that process with them.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So Dan, anything else before we close?
No, I think it's been a fun time talking about this. We have a ton of other assets and technology we want to definitely share with everyone. We have additional podcasts coming out in the future, and looking forward to having more conversations.
Great, great. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being our guest on today's podcast. And for the next podcast, we'd love to invite you back, and let's talk about patient financing. What do you say?
Sounds great. Sounds perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and look forward to the next podcast. Have a great day.
Hospitals, physician practices as well. This is what you need. This is HiLite Health. There's a problem in the system we cannot ignore. Out-of-pocket expenses for the patients has really soared, and they can't pay to balance the treatment.